I think people should see the Path to Catherine, because Catherine the Great, at least in the Western world, I don't know how she's been written about in Russia and in the countries closer over there, but in European and all of the history that was written about her, she was portrayed so, I don't know the word, so slanderously and almost viciously, and she's been written about by all these European men who were jealous of her power. She became very, very powerful, and she didn't, after Peter, she didn't marry, and she had relationships. She was a serial monogamist, but at the time there's been all this stuff written about her that's just gross, and just these ridiculous, stupid men writing ridiculous, stupid, awful stuff about her. And I wanted to tell a story that was actually true. And this story that I've told is true. I haven't made up stuff. I didn't just use the name Catherine the Great and then write whatever the heck I wanted. I really wrote what, from all the research I did, what I could tease out as the truth of what happened. And then I contoured things a little bit to make it work in the show. But I wanted her to have her chance, to have her say, and for her to be recognized for her humanity, for her leadership, for her compassion, for her, the way she valued education and the arts. And somebody has to do that. And I hope it's us. I hope it's me. I hope it's all my collaborators. And I hope that everybody who comes to the show, they don't need to write plays about it, but in our lives, we can be brave and be courageous. And even if we are maligned by people who don't understand, it is worthwhile to persist. I think that's why. Hi, I'm Patricia Zehentmayr. I am the bookwriter and lyricist for the new musical, The Path to Catherine. If you want to hear more about this 3-woman sung-through pop rock show, please listen to the conversation that's forthcoming. A sung-through musical, most musicals that are called book musicals, you write them generally as a play first, and then you find moments in the scene where the people would sing. And it's usually where they're so overcome with emotion that just talking isn't enough. So then they bring it up to song. A sung through is a little bit more like an opera, in which everything that even what would be dialogue is sung. So you may have a break here or there where a line is spoken, but for the most part, they're singing the whole time, such as Les Mis, Hamilton, Evita, Hadestown. Those are all sung through. So it's a lot of music, and it's a lot for the singers to learn. And since our show has 3 people, it is such a heavy lift for all 3 of them, which was also why we couldn't make use of a virtual platform, because Jan has to teach them the music in person. And we were still in a time when it was unsafe to meet in person. And you cannot send these singer actors a score such as ours and say, hey, just learn it on your own. It's just, that's not how it works. So the story of The Path to Catherine is Sophie is a teenager. Sophie will eventually become Catherine the Great, but her name is Sophie in our show because she's not yet become Catherine. She is German. She is a princess, but in Germany, there were many, 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 many princesses. She was not anything special as far as her rank, but her mother was very highly ranked, Joanna. but Joanna had married beneath her, so her rank had lowered. Joanna's very ambitious. And Joanna's brother had married the Empress Elizabeth's sister. So the Empress now needs an heir. She has chosen her dead sister's son to be her heir. His name is Peter. He's the grandson of Peter the Great. And he's obviously now, as a teenager, you can see that he is mentally unstable, like many people in that family who were mentally ill. And Elizabeth has realized he's not an heir. She needs him to have a son. So she needs to get him married. So she wants a family for herself, since all of her family has died. So she invites Sophie and Joanna to come to Russia to be considered to be Peter's wife. There are many other princesses and other noble girls who could also be Peter's wife. It's not a given. So the entire show happens from January to May of 1744. And it's the three women's negotiating what they want and what they can get and what they can't get and how they're going about doing it. In the end, we all know that Sophie marries Peter, eventually overthrows him, and becomes Catherine the Great. Not in our show. And our show ends with Elizabeth making the decision that Sophie can marry Peter, as long as Sophie agrees to send her mother home to never return. So Sophie has to choose, does she want her family or does she want to be close to power? We have an amazing cast. These women have to work so hard because it's 90 minutes of singing, and all three of them basically have about the same. They all have about 30% of the show. And we have Elise Walters playing Sophie, the teenager who will become Catherine the Great. We have Jessica Reiner Harris, who is just so talented. She and I have worked together before on other shows of mine. And she's playing Joanna, Sophie's very ambitious, kind of narcissistic mother. And then we have Robin Roth playing Elizabeth, who is the Empress. And Robin brings to her this so interesting, because Elizabeth she was not mentally ill like some of her family, but she was not completely mentally healthy. And Robin brings this really a deep understanding of the imbalance of Elizabeth's nature, and the three of them together. It's just, it's intense, it's interesting, it's explosive. There's this, tension underneath everything. And that's what gives so much, why there's so much singing. That's why we decided to make it sung through, because of the intensity of the situation they're in is that intense. Our director is Joanna Syiek, and we got so lucky with her. She is the perfect person to bring to life this kind of the intersection of history, women, and rock. Our score is a pop rock score. There's a lot of I don't know, rawness. It's not raw, but it's not, they're not singing. When I would tell friends of mine that I was writing a show about Catherine the Great and it was set in 1744, they thought that we'd have like chamber music, very formal classical style. And we really wanted to go more in the direction of more like Spring Awakening, where you're contrasting, because the positions they were in needed a more explosive kind of music than a more formalized music. And that's something that Joanna understands really well. And for her to be able to tease out all of the nuances, why they're saying what they're saying when they're saying it, and how to bring across, because in a sung through, you don't have the dialogue to help people understand. So a lot of the physical movements that the actors are doing is helping to explain all the lyrics that are just coming at you. There's a lot of lyrics, and sung through shows, often you don't get them the first time. You have to listen a second and third time to get everything, because your brain can't process it that fast. And you know that when you're writing a sung through musical, and you know that you're going to depend on the director, choreographer person to add physicality. And that's something that she just does like in her sleep. It's astounding, the things she comes up with, and the creativity that she brings to help bring the work through. It's been really a fantastic collaboration. What I want the audience to get out of this production, I think, is I love history. It excites me for whatever reason. And I think that I'd like people to feel that history is accessible to them, and that these women were exactly like we are today. They were just in a different position. And, I only wrote about these noble people because that's all the records we have. We don't have records of a Russian peasant in the 1740s whose family was trying to marry her off to another family because they owned a cow. It's the same story. And I think it speaks to how much those women are exactly like we are. And we live in a time where do you choose family? Do you choose to become a mother? Do you choose, I think maybe the generation before me and my generation are the first generations that didn't have to get married. We didn't have to. We didn't have to have a man. We could buy a house in our own name. We could have a credit card in our own name. We didn't need a husband to sign those things for us. And that's something that I think has been an upheaval in our society since birth control in the 60s and the feminist movement that's been happening since probably the suffrage movement. But these women, so the choice that our character who becomes Catherine, Sophie, that she has to choose what she wants. And I think that's what a lot of women, at least of my age and younger too, because you can't have everything. The women before me, a generation before me, were sort of told they could have everything. So they chose these careers, had the careers, then they had to do their career, marry, take care of the home, and then suddenly they were too old to have children. And they were all like, well, I thought I could, there were a lot of women who were born, I think, baby boomers, who ended up having that choice taken away. And what I think is interesting is that in this show, Sophie is choosing a life the way we choose lives now. Most people of that time didn't get to choose. She didn't have to marry Peter. She could have gone home to Germany. She would have married somebody else. But having the choice and not all the characters, I mean, both Joanna and Elizabeth kind of have to make peace with the life that's been forced on them. And our main character, Sophie, is the only one who chooses. So I think that's a long way of saying, I think that the audience that comes to see the show, I think everyone, I hope, will identify with all of the women or one woman in particular and feel a continuity of what the women before us did and what that enables us to do now. I think that is important because I think that people my age and younger take for granted, that we have choices. And I think we wouldn't have them if the women who came before us didn't fight so hard. What am I looking for when I'm in the theater watching? I'm just praying to God that what I wrote comes across, that the director gets it, that the actors get it, because I've never written book before. So I don't know if did I get this in? Did I get that in? Does that make sense? And I have no idea. It makes sense in my head, but did I get it on the page? I don't know. And so for me, I'm at the rehearsals just breathing a sigh of relief every time I see that Joanna understands what I meant and that the actors get it. And there's this beautiful kind of, even though there's so many words in this play, there's this level of unspoken understanding that we all understand each other, that Joanna and me and Jan and Elise and Jessica and Robin, that somehow there's an unspoken understanding that's come through and that we're all kind of riding the same wave. And that is the coolest. That's just the coolest part of collaborating. It's so exciting for me to bring to life these incredible women from a time and a place that we don't know, and to bring them into our world now by using language that we understand, by using music that we're used to hearing, music that speaks to us, because we have all been hearing since we were babies the music of our time. It's in you, it's in your body and your heart, even if you don't know it, because that's how music works. You hear it in a grocery store, you hear it in a restaurant, you hear it in the car, you hear it on television. You hear music and it gets in it's part of it's literally part of your physiological body. And when you hear music that is like that, rather than, for example, us playing some sort of classical chamber music, we hear less of that. So when you hear this kind of music that is more popular, that's more something that's been heard and you've internalized, it brings an identification so that you don't feel like these women are so far away from you and your experience. It makes it feel, I don't want to say like home to you, but it's familiar. And so you're able then to, if you had the idea that these women are so foreign and from hundreds of years ago, they have nothing in common with me, I think it changes that completely. I hope so. I don't have an answer for this, but at this time, Sophie is 14 and a half. And when I first was writing the show, I thought we would hire an actor who looked like 17 or 18, and we would just sort of gloss over her age, because I think it's uncomfortable for us today to think of a 14 and a half year old being married for the purpose of having a baby. There's something really creepy to us, I think, in this day and age. And I thought I could gloss over it, but Tamra Pica said, people know. All they have to do is Google it. If they don't know, we can't pretend. We know she's 14 and a half. And I think there's something there's something that gives you this sense of urgency that you have to make decisions in your life. You have to make them when they come your way, and you don't get to choose when they come your way, and you're never ready when they come your way. It's like my friends, have always said, well, I'm going to have a baby here. I'm going to have a baby here. It's never a good time to have a baby. You've always got something else going on. But when you get pregnant, there's the baby. And that's it. That's what life handed you. And I think because she's so young, that adds to the stakes, and it makes you realize you can make those decisions too. They come at you when you least expect it. They overwhelm you with the responsibility you have, and knowing that the choice you make could affect the outcome of your entire life. We've all had moments like that. And you have to make them with the tools you've got and the knowledge you've got at that moment in life. And that's true for all the women in this show. And I think that's true for every woman who will see this show and every man who will see this show. You don't get to choose when you make those decisions. I'm Patricia Zehentmayr. I'm the book writer and lyricist for The Path to Catherine, which is a new musical with 3 women. It tells the story of the teenage girl, Sophie, who will eventually become Catherine the Great, and the 3 women who shaped her. We have a fantastic cast of 3 super talented women. We're performing at the Brickhouse Theatre in North Hollywood, produced by Right Act Repertory. And we hope you will all come out and join us to see the story of how it took 3 strong women to make one great queen.